Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be going over what cars I basically considered before I got my 2018 Toyota Camry XSE V6. I'm going to go over every car I considered getting before I got this car. So the first one, going to get the weird ones out of the way first, not really direct competitors to this car, but cars I considered getting and why I didn't choose them. Number one, the E60 BMW M5. I've always had a soft spot for this generation 5 Series, well, specifically the M5. From 2006 to around 2010, well, 2005-ish to 2010, the E60 M5 was produced by BMW. It was a 4-door sedan. If you guys are new to the channel, you might know I have a soft spot for fast sedans. I know people have, you know, people like fast wagons, fast coupes, obviously. Fast SUVs is the new craze now. But I specifically like fast, you know, sleeper sedans. So the E60 BMW M5 is the ultimate sleeper sedan. It's got a 5-liter naturally aspirated V10, around 500 horsepower. At the time when it came out, this was in, you know, the Germans were really going crazy when it comes to, you know, putting large, huge, naturally aspirated engines in normal, everyday cars. Audi did this with the S6, the S8, the RS6 Avant at the time, which had a twin-turbo V10. But there's just something that, you know, allures everybody to a V10 sedan. Now, obviously, I had a couple in mind I wanted to get. It was in my price range, but obviously, I kind of decided, obviously, not to do it, not to go through with the E60 M5 just because of the reliability. As obviously, I was picking a new daily driver. It was not reliable whatsoever. Not reliable whatsoever, very expensive to maintain those cars. They're actually, the engines tend to basically fall apart after, you know, and I was looking at a somewhat high mileage one. I'm not going to go over the exact one, but I know some people won't care. But ultimately, I knew it was not a smart financial decision because I'd be bogged down in maintenance costs. Second is another fast sedan, the Dodge Charger 392, or, you know, the Scat Pack, the RT. So, you know, the Dodge Charger, I was looking to get a Dodge Charger V8, and, you know, specifically with the 392 engine, a little bit more, obviously a little bit more sporty, has a much larger engine than this car, V8, 6.4 liter, naturally aspirated. I decided not to go with that for a couple of reasons. Number one, it was a little out of my price range. They tend to go in the high 40s, especially now. I mean, you definitely didn't want to use Dodge. But they go in the high 40s, and I wasn't really looking to spend that much. I was kind of in the mid 32 to 35 range. I got this car for around 31 out the door because I knew I wanted to do some mods to it. So in the end, I ended up not going with the Charger because of the price, and also, you know, just fuel economy. I didn't want to spend that much on fuel. This would be a daily driver. I always had a soft spot too for the Chrysler 300, but those are not reliable whatsoever. But I do love the design of the Chrysler 300, especially the S and the V8. One of my buddies had a 300S V6. I love the look of those. They're big-bodied, full-blooded American sedans. You know, it's just something that I could get them. I could have gotten one. They're, you know, depending on what options, but, you know, in the end, they're not the most reliable. And, you know, they haven't really updated them in years, so I decided not to go with the 300. The Civic Type R, I was looking at one, and I love the Civic Type R. It's a great hot hatch, very fun to throw around, very fast. You know, the design a lot of people don't like. I think it looks, you know, it's obviously not the sleeper look I like, but it is cool looking nonetheless, very special, and kind of rare because you don't see that many around on the roads, at least where I am in New Jersey. Problem with that was the price and the upcharging from the dealerships. I didn't want to pay close to $50,000 for a Civic. You know, I know it's not just a Civic, but in the end, it is kind of the same platform. But, you know, it's ultimately something that I decided not to go with because of price. Now, another car I was considering was actually the Avalon TRD and obviously the Camry TRD. I made a video about this a couple weeks back, so I'm not going to hit this too much over the head. Avalon TRD, I decided not to go with it because of the size of it. Obviously, the price was a little bit of a factor too, but because my dealer was asking for like 48,000 MSRP. I could have knocked them down a little bit, but, you know. But it was also, the performance didn't make sense to me of the Avalon TRD. The Avalon TRD is one of those cars that it's so big, it's so heavy. They didn't add any more power really to it. I said to myself, this is not going to be sporty whatsoever. Decided not to go with it. I'm not shitting on the Avalon TRD. It's a great car. I just didn't feel like it was very sporty, just because of the size and no power bump, and you know, it was something. Camry TRD, I already went over that, but I was considering a Camry TRD. I'm not going to go over that too much. And just some other ones, you know, the Honda Accord. You know, a lot of people are probably wondering at this point, why haven't you talked about the Honda Accord? I actually never considered getting an Accord when I was looking for a new car a year ago. I'm not a Honda guy whatsoever, and I know you're going to say, well, you just talked about a Civic Type R. That's really the only Civic I would ever consider, the only Honda I would ever consider getting. Yeah, no, I never considered an Accord just because there was no V6 offered. I know the turbo 4-cylinder that's in the Accord Sport and the Accord, the higher trim Accords, is very fast. You know, the 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, very fast, a lot of torque, probably faster than my V6, just because of the weight, you know, the weight that engine brings. But I wanted a naturally aspirated V6. I had come from a Ford Fusion, but before this Turbo 4, kind of the same mentality, same driving experience. I really wanted a naturally aspirated V6, and that's something you can't get with an Accord, so I decided not to go with it. A lot of people are going to say, oh, well, we want more of an explanation. That was just the simple fact that it didn't have a V6. So that's how the Accord kind of lost me. So what other cars really... not really much else. I mean, besides, I know a couple of these, the first oddballs were like, oh, you're thinking about a used BMW. Yeah, I do have a soft spot for German cars, especially the older ones with the, you know, the naturally aspirated V8s and V10s, but they're just too unreliable. I didn't want to, obviously you can't daily drive any of those used German cars. They're more of the project end and the collectors, if you can get low mileage. So I just want to make a quick video. Cars I was considering before I got my Camry. You know, it's a list that some of you guys are curious, and how I ended up with this car, the Camry. This car was definitely not my first choice, but it ended up being great as a daily driver, reliable, good on power, good sound, nice interior, nice exterior. I could do a couple things to it. So I appreciate you guys watching the video. I hope this helped a couple people kind of figure out where I was coming from, you know, and how I ended up with this car. So I appreciate you guys watching the video, and I'll see you next time.